Welcome to the SI Impact Series. Today I have Ara. Ari, before I jump into it, what are you passionate about right now?
It is. I'm passionate about ending fatalities due to school violence. Absolutely committed to that mission right now. And I know that it can
Wow.
be accomplished. I feel more confident today that it can be accomplished despite all the news and the number of incidents. But I know that we can get there.
Wow. Is so relevant to right now because it seems like every other day I hear on the news there's an incident, there's another incident. And so when I saw what you're getting into with ZeroNow and leveraging some of your tech experience and those connections and pulling it together, I was really impressed. So I'm very excited for you to be on the show because, and so ideas like pulling together that consortium with ZeroNow or Omnilert, taking those things and applying it to our environment or our society or how we interact with each other, we have more leverage. And so I'm really excited about this. What is other than it's right in the name, ZeroNow, can you tell me a little bit more about what that is and how that's going?
Sure. It really started, it's been a 10-year plus conversation that I've been having with a friend of mine, Joe Samaha, who lost his daughter Rima in the Virginia Tech shooting back in 2007. And you mentioned Omnilert, so I'm the co-founder of Omnilert. We created the first mass emergency notification system back in 2003, 2004, so students can receive a text alert if there's an emergency on campus. And this was way before we started having mass shootings, right? This was in the early 2000s. And Joe and I always talked about how, really after 2007, just how school safety and campus safety was fragmented. We lack a unified voice. Everyone's doing their own thing. You've got different organizations doing things, nonprofits. You've got technology companies doing their thing, but we really lack that unified voice, the standards, and really pulling things together to work together to achieve zero harm to school campuses. So we started right at the beginning of COVID. I hired a CEO for Omnilert in 2020 and started the journey with ZeroNow in March of 2020, right when we went under lockdown or quarantine with COVID, which opened up a unique opportunity because most of the people that I was reaching out to were home. It wasn't a matter of chasing people down and with travel and trying to schedule face-to-face meetings. Everyone was home. We'd hop on a Zoom meeting and talk about ZeroNow and how we can collaborate. And so in just about a year and a half, we're coming up on our second year right now, we've got a number of amazing companies like Microsoft and Johnson Controls, Access, Omnilert is a founding partner, obviously. We're working with the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement, NASPA, the Families of Virginia Tech. So we're really pulling together all these different stakeholders to work together, to collaborate, to drive ideas, innovation, and investment to advance school safety.
Wow, that's fantastic. I'm a big proponent of collaboration because I feel like we can't, no matter even Microsoft, right? Fantastic organization, huge, wide range of things that they're involved in, but they can't do everything. You can have the best ideas in the world. You can't do everything. So pulling together that collaborative group or that consortium, it's amazing what can come out of that. So I really respect it. It's not the easiest tack to take, and consensus building, that community building takes time, but to me, I think that's the only way to do it. Is there constraints that you see that collaboration helps you overcome?
Oh yeah, well, so what's interesting is that we frame this under the concept of collective impact, right? We all have our goals, we all have our objectives, and as commercial companies, we have our objectives, and we do, every company that is considered for ZeroNow is vetted. We have a committee that reviews all the companies to make sure that there's alignment, and we have, like I mentioned, like nonprofit organizations, but the key is that collective impact. How do we work together? How do we collaborate? We've got competitors that are in this, but we don't look at one another's competitors. It's okay. The cause, the mission is more important than our individual purpose as a for-profit company. Nonprofits obviously are also very engaged with this, but it's just the challenges are really, how do we move things forward more quickly? And really through this collaboration, we've really started to focus on what are some things that schools can do to take steps right now, proactive steps to increase the security of their school campus. And we're creating this thing called the Path to Zero, which is an easy to digest framework, almost like a baseline. Like here are the things that any school board director, superintendent, principal college or university can start on right away to help guide them step by step to get to at least a baseline of safety that improves their current state of being at their current school or campus.
That's great. Can you explain to us how Omnilert fits into that whole solution set? And just a little about this, because I want everyone who's unaware to know about Omnilert, one, but two, I know that a lot of our audience are tech people. And so from a tech perspective, you're playing to my heartstrings here, because you have impact, but you're also doing something that's fairly technical, which I love that too. So I want to just dive into that. And everybody is really interested in AI and ML, so I don't want to give away too much, but can you just tell us how this works and how that fits into the ecosystem solution that you're presenting?
Oh, absolutely. And part of the ecosystem. So I mentioned, technology innovators like Omnilert, Microsoft Access, Axon, Johnson Controls, right? So, and we have, like I mentioned, the nonprofit, but also we're looking to attract the innovators. If you're familiar with Jeffrey Moore's technology adoption life cycle and crossing the chasm, those visionaries, those early adopters, the ones that need to be first with any new technology, those are the education safety leaders that we're attracting to our community. And it really is very much a community of stakeholders, right? And so where Omnilert fits in, so when we started Omnilert back in 2003, 2004, we introduced this concept of sending mass text alerts to cell phones. And it was such a new concept back then because, I sometimes carry a phone with me. I don't have to have one with me now, but a little flip phone. But that was the state of the art back then. But most people couldn't understand why anyone would want a text message sent to their cell phone, right? A cell phone is for making phone calls, we would hear. And schools would just shut the door in our face, like, no, this is a horrible idea. We've had some ideas we've heard in the past. This is probably by far the worst idea. And it wasn't until really the Virginia Tech event that changed the whole paradigm. Like, why can't we communicate instantly with students? And so that was a major milestone. And then fast forward to about 3 or 4 years ago, and working with Chad, who you just recently had in a show, but bringing to market. We've always heard from our customers, so we've always evolved the emergency communication side of things with text messages. We added automation. So if there's an emergency, like from your watch, I'm sure you have a lot of techies on here. I like to say that we turn everyday heroes into real world superheroes. So if you're a school administrator and you need to lock down your school because you knew something was happening, you could flip open your watch, hit lockdown, and within seconds, everyone gets alerted. Your website is updated. Parents are notified. Doors are locked. All these things happen simultaneously. But we've always heard from customers, well, we're concerned about active shooter. How do we prevent active shooter? How do we keep people out of harm's way? And so that's where we introduced Gun Detect, which is AI-powered visual gun detection, which can identify a firearm within a matter of seconds, and you could automate that entire response within a matter of seconds. And so a common scenario that we're trying to drive as a standard is to secure the perimeter of every school, every campus, every house of worship, every building should have surveillance security cameras running visual gun detection. Because you look at some of the most recent mass shootings at schools, that the assailant walked up to the school with an exposed firearm. In fact, the last one in Covenant School in Nashville, the individual was outside for almost 2 minutes with a gun exposed. And if you're able to identify that gun and then automatically lock the doors, notify first responders, law enforcement, let people in the building know that we are under lockdown, barricade yourselves in the room, whatever the protocols are, that can save lives. And what we always talk about, Kaylee, is that we want to, first of all, prevent an event from happening, right? We want to prevent an event from happening in the first place through early intervention, see something, say something. There are ways to find help for that individual before they actually do something. But if we fail to do that, how do we prevent harm from happening? And we do that through early threat detection using Omnilert Gun Detect. So you detect the firearm, you automate the response, and then hopefully people are kept out of harm's way. The assailant can't even enter the building. So that's such a critical piece. And I go back to the visionary early adopters, bringing those folks, bringing those customers, right? The people that are the visionary safety leaders at schools or college campuses into the ZeroNow community helps create those connections, helps them steer the direction of products before they're commercialized, because they're working directly with Omnilert and Microsoft and Axon and Johnson Controls and all these amazing companies, but collaborating with the people that are actually using these tools to keep people safe. And so we're building those collaborations. We always say that we facilitate collaboration with our partners to drive ideas, innovation, and investment. So hopefully that kind of frames it a little bit for you.
That does. I think that does it quite well. So you mentioned a couple of times visionaries, forward-thinking people, and I understand in that context, it's really entrepreneurship or someone in an organization says, I can be a leader, I can solve this problem. And absolutely 100% necessary for our world to change, for those companies or those organizations to be successful. But I also think of this as your work with entrepreneurs and with those innovators that are coming up with new ideas or founding new businesses. And I know that you've done quite a bit of work in that area. Can you speak to that? How do people kind of follow your lead here and maybe pursue an idea or a passion and then let that go down to where it can go, form a business around it, build something that allows for change?
Well, and that's the thing, is to actually build something. I learned the hard way. I mean, so back in the dot-com boom, I had a web development company and building websites for startups. It's a great idea, like building this online marketplace to connect small businesses together so you can exchange products and goods. And I spent over a year just refining the business plan, and worldmarketdirect.com never even happened because I was focused so much on the business plan versus just building a prototype, an MVP. In fact, I would recommend to entrepreneurs that have an idea and a concept to create it first. Start with the end first. Like, don't start at the beginning, like write the market strategy, this and that. What are you envisioning? Create a prototype and see if there's interest in that. Going back to when we first started Omnilert, we didn't build the thing. We built because I have a web background, I built a mock-up of what the interface would look like, and we went and we shared it with a community college, Anne Arundel Community College, back in 2003, and said, hey, this is what the system can do. You type in your message, you click send, bam, thousands of people just got a text alert. And from that prototype, they decided to purchase the system, and then we built it rather than building it and then trying to find a market for it. Right? That's backwards. And I know that the MVP approach, we were calling it creating a prototype back then, but starting off with an MVP, a product, and seeing if there's, before you invest too much time, too much money in building the full thing out and adding features to this thing, start with the core. What problem are you solving? Because if you're not solving a problem, then you have nothing of value. I mean, it's just about problem solving more than anything else.
So smart. It's amazing the quality of feedback that you can get just from a well-crafted landing page, right? A simple website is the same as your pitch, is the same as a lot of the other materials that you need to move forward. But yeah, a lot of people are really interested in detailed business plans because they think they need to get funding or they need to do XYZ. But I don't know. I think it's really fear of getting in front of somebody and say, explain this, and then you can't explain it. At the end of the day, that's going to happen no matter how long you've spent not talking to someone. So you might as well just.
That's the thing. It needs to be simple. I always use the phrase, it needs to be Fisher Price. I have an awesome next door neighbor, he's 7 years old. And if I cannot explain to him a concept, then I'm back to the drawing board. And I was able to explain to him about the work we're doing, and I gave him a challenge coin, and he was pretty excited about that. But the thing is, though, if the problem you're solving is not clear, it's not apparent, if it's not large enough, then there really isn't anything there. And so with the gun detection, for example, I mean, that obviously is a major problem. When we were bringing this to market during COVID, the market was solely focused on COVID safety. When you talk about safety, it's all about COVID. But we were just completely focused on gun detect, getting it completely built, integrated, the automation, all of those things happening. And obviously right now it's a major problem. It's the fact that you turn on the news, that's all that you hear about is mass gun violence. And how do we prevent this from happening? And like I said, I mean, from a technology side, preventing an event is critical, because safety is a community thing. But if we can't do that, how early can we detect a threat and then automate response so people have a head start? It could be a minute, could be 2 minutes, could be 30, even 30 seconds is an eternity in a situation like that.
That's phenomenal. Ara, thank you so much for the conversation and the time today. I know you're a busy guy. You have a whole world to change. You have a lot going on. I see there's a guitar in your background, so you probably need to stop talking to me and get some free time so you can so you can play and do all the other things you're passionate about. Before we go, do you have any parting words of wisdom for our audience? We've got startups and tech people and hopefuls and VCs listening. Can you give us a nugget for the end of the show?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just had coffee this morning with a student that I've been mentoring for a number of years, and he's got a new idea. And what like we just discussed, starting with the end, mock up what this new platform looks like. Start with the end, and then work your way towards that. So I think that that's critical for for any entrepreneur, any techie. Figure out what this thing, mock it up. Don't start coding and building things from the code level. Build from the UI, the UX, so then you can figure out how that's going to work, and if it's even worth pursuing and investing the time and actually building the thing out in the first place.
I love that so much. There's not enough time in the show for me to tell you why that's as right as it is. But how can people engage with you and your mission if they listen to this? What's the next steps that they can take to help ZeroNow and help what you're passionate about right now?
Thank you for asking, because so like I mentioned, ZeroNow is a stakeholder community. So we have students, right? We have parents, we have safety leaders, we have school administrators, we have folks from Homeland Security and Secret Service. We have technology companies, like I mentioned. Anyone that is passionate about school safety and has ideas that can help advance school safety can go to zeronow.org. We are a community. We're a membership-based organization. It's a nonprofit, but we're membership-based, and there's no cost for students. For professionals and other folks, it's like $100 a year. There's no cost for the first year, but because we want to engage people, and if you don't see value in this, then you don't have to continue. But it's a very active group. So just go to zeronow.org, click on community, and you could join the ZeroNow community, the ZeroNow movement online, and be a part of the solution. Because we are. I'm just gonna throw one data at you. 1958 was a very important year because that was the last time that somebody died in a school fire. And so
Wow.
we are confident. And after having these conversations with the ZeroNow community, all these safety experts and visionaries and pioneers, I'm more confident. We had the name ZeroNow because we're going to get to zero. We're going to get to zero fatalities caused by violence in schools. That seemed like a very lofty, yeah, right. Okay, that's too big. But I'm more confident today than I was 2 years ago that we can actually get to zero, just like we did with school fire deaths. Because of technology, the way buildings were designed, training, drills, materials, all these different factors went into it. It wasn't just one specific thing. Fires never went away. Fires still exist, but we have the ability to get people out of harm's way when there is a fire in a school or any building for that matter. We can get there. So if people believe that we could get there as well, please join the ZeroNow community, and we'll be a part of this conversation.
All right, fantastic. And we'll put all that information down in the description so people can get involved. Ara, thank you again for taking the time to be on the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.